Everyone, Rarity Dash here. Time for another Patreon-sponsored Blind Reaction. And this one comes to you courtesy of Dark Griffin, who has requested that I react to Who Are Albedo Sisters, Overlord, Albedo Sisters, Nigredo, and Rubedo explained from AniNews. So yeah, another AniNews video about Overlord, and yeah, it's a topic that I'm very interested to learn about, because it's something that I don't really know about. I mean, this is something that isn't really touched on in the anime. Yeah, I can't remember. I mean, maybe it was mentioned at some point. A lot of stuff gets mentioned in passing in Overlord, but I can't remember the fact that Albedo even had sisters ever coming up in the anime. So I really didn't know that until this video was requested, that they even existed. And we learned a little bit more about them in the video that I watched last time, the last AniNews Overlord video, where we learned a bit more about Albedo. But I still am just very curious to actually hear a bit more about these sisters. Maybe, I don't know if they've really been, if we really have designs for them. Because that would be cool. I'd like to see what they're like, what they look like. See if they're potential waifu material. I mean, Albedo certainly is. Definitely waifu material there. Not really my favorite waifu, but she's definitely a good one. And yeah, if I recall from the previous video, one of the sisters is an older sister and one's a younger sister. I forget which one. But I'm just really curious to learn more, see what I'm missing, what's being kept from the anime. I mean, I imagine if they're being left out of the anime, they're not really that big of characters in the novels. But yeah, I mean, they are characters who, as far as I recall, haven't even been mentioned in the anime, so still, I'm really interested to kind of learn what they're all about. Yeah. Anyway, all I really got to say, let's go ahead and get this started. And here we go.
Yes, Albedo does have two sisters.
Okay, and we don't know what one of them looks like, I
both
guess.
cut out from the anime. But for a good reason, I'm sure, since there's not even enough information on the two of them to cover a full 5-minute video.
I see.
Here's a video on them anyway, just because I know
well, it's a 6-minute video.
More about them. So let's take a look at two of Anime Nazareth's
So I guess we
most
found
mysterious
at least something to say.
As I had mentioned last episode, all three of their names stem from the 3 stages that are required to produce the ancient artifact known as the Philosopher's Stone. Due to Tabula's passion for all things related to the ancient occult, it's fairly clear that alchemy had a heavy influence on him and his creations. Since, after all, the first stage is Nigredo, the older sister, the second Albedo, and the third is Rubedo, the youngest.
Oh, well, you have
but
the
not
shadow,
only
I
were
guess,
each of his creations
outline.
named after his love for lore and alchemy, but he also modeled and designed them in accordance to each of his 3 passions, which just so happened to coincidentally align with the meaning of each of their names. If we look at Nigredo first, her name means blackening and is symbolic of putrefaction and decomposition. As such, Nigredo also embodied the form of Tabula's love for the horror genre. Visually, she looks like she was the animated version of that chick from The Grudge.
Yeah.
Having long wavy black hair.
Not
that's
really
meant
much
to
of a
hide her
waifu there.
supposedly terrifying face. Nigredo's creation was merely meant to be a prank on the other guildmates. Everything from her character design to the bedroom that she stayed in, and even the AI scripts that she was given, seemed to have been copy-pasted directly from a horror movie. Remember, Tabula liked to fill Nazarick with these stupid little gimmicks and weird mechanisms, so he made Nigredo's room one where if you entered, you'd come across a hunched-over Nigredo, mourning softly while she cradles this baby in the corner of this poorly lit room.
I see.
As if to immediately recognize your presence, she would look down at the baby and become agitated as she comes to the realization that what she's been cuddling was nothing more than a doll. As this happens, baby-like creatures called carrion crawlers would emerge from every nook and cranny of the room and begin to
very
wail.
horror movie.
Nigredo would then start to look around, and her eyes would eventually land on the unlucky soul that had entered her room. She'd then start to accuse you of stealing her child and run directly at you with scissors in hand. In order to prevent yourself from being attacked, you'd have to present her with one of the dolls that were located outside her room, after which she'd return to what she was doing. Well,
The bloody
that
Valkyrie,
was what was
huh?
supposed to happen anyways. It's not clear whether Tabula just forgot to write her any lore or backstory, or whether he deliberately created her this way. But after the scene had played out the way it was intended, Nigredo's personality just flipped dramatically, and she returned to being a perfectly ordinary servant of Nazarick who would just accept orders.
Huh.
She might even be among the few members of Nazarick who were good aligned. You see, when Demiurgus captured a large group of citizens from the kingdom back in the end of Season 2, Ainz had ordered them to be mercifully executed rather than tortured or experimented on. So Nigredo, along with the Dogmaid, had attempted to smuggle the innocent children out of Nazarick, but they were caught, and their actions were almost deemed treasonous.
There's a weird character
Albedo
that actually
even
made
wanted
the
to
anime.
have them executed, but instead they were confined. Because of this, Nigredo now spends her time isolated in the frozen prison on the tomb's 5th floor. This could also be yet another example of Tabula's implementation of his love for Gat Moe. Even though Nigredo looks like this scary entity who enjoys killing things, she in actuality is against the killing of innocent people. So much so that she would even defy Ainz's direct orders to help the innocent. As for her build, it was specialized for divination and counter-divination purposes, so Ainz and Nazarick have made numerous uses of her abilities. She was first introduced in the source material back in Season 1, when Ainz used her abilities to locate shelter when she had been mind-controlled. Demiurgus had also arranged to protect himself from being spied on during his meeting with Adventurer Ainz so as to prevent Ainz from breaking his cover. So her abilities are quite focused on observation and information gathering. Now, Rubedo on the other hand has nearly no information attributed to her, but let's start with the things that we do know. Her name means reddening, symbolizing perfection and reunification. Though there isn't a single visual to show you of her, you can assume that red plays a prominent feature in her design, and you might be able to speculate that because of Tabula's Gat Moe love, he probably designed her like this cute, weak little girl who will just end up one-shotting your ass into oblivion.
Okay.
But who exactly is she, though? Well, honestly, I don't know. Let's just say that while Nigredo thinks that she's a rather unusual being that will bring disaster on Nazarick, Albedo thinks she's relatively harmless. Or at least, however dangerous or powerful she may be, or however much potential for ruin that she has, it's unlikely for her to direct that destructive potential towards Nazarick. We know she's the most powerful entity in Nazarick.
Okay.
We also know that she was not created by normal means like the rest of the NPCs, and that she doesn't show any empathy.
Interesting.
And when I say that she's the strongest entity in Nazarick, I mean stronger than all other guild members, including the world champion Touch Me. So yeah, that's pretty damn strong.
Yeah?
It's because of this fact of her absolute strength, combined with knowing that she wasn't created through normal means, that fans speculate that she might be an artificial humanoid construct created via the caloric stone. The caloric stone being this world item which could potentially be used as a golem's core, or to create or enhance one thing. The full details on this was in my world items video, so you can go watch that if you want to know more about them. But right now, it's highly possible that the world item known as the caloric stone was used to give Nazarick their greatest offense. She can beat a fully stacked Ainz and easily defeat each of the close combat specialist floor guardians. It would also tie very nicely into Tabula's lore if he was able to end up creating Rubedo as the greatest alchemic creation. But once again, that's just speculated and not confirmed. But yeah, that's Nigredo and Rubedo. I really wish I could share more, but there just isn't that much info. Anyway,
so that's pretty good. That's definitely interesting.
Sisters, and feel free to share any theories that you may have on them. But as always, thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this type of anime content, then you already know what to do. So, until next time, ciao.
That'll probably lead to something interesting in the novels eventually. Like maybe a whole arc about Rubedo. If she's that powerful and that important. Kind of have to assume that it's like inevitable that eventually, especially if they're hiding the design, that's a pretty good sign that eventually gonna be important. And Negredo, I mean, if it is eventually important, maybe she will get worked into the anime. Though for now, it doesn't really seem. I mean, I would like to see her animated. See more of, how that's, what that looks like. You could probably, that whole horror scene, you could probably make that pretty interesting, animated. And, I don't know. But very interesting lore, and I'm definitely curious to see if it ever does show up in animated form or what. And whatever the case, it makes Albedo more interesting, knowing she has these sisters. And it's just cool stuff that I didn't really know about. So there we go. Good video. Hope you liked the reaction. Let me know if you did, and see you in the next one.